Imagine looking at a couple buildings that fell over while you're just walking out one day and be like, ha, that's funny. Those buildings just fell over. Wow, what loser buildings. Whatever losers built those things. Make sure they're not building anything I own. Definitely not Bob the Builder over here. You know what I'm saying? And then you find out it's the Twin Towers. Yeah, I'm not laughing anymore. I can't even. No, the added context, it's ruined now. That's basically how I'm looking at the Angels after the latest news that's since come out about this absolute degenerate organization. So thank you for being here. Subscribe or not. If you haven't joined the 49% elite humans, consider hitting that button if you like the videos, as I'm going to get y'all in on a little secret here. In fact, so secret, I'm going to whisper so nobody around you hears it. You ready? I curse the Angels. Yep, my sheer existence has sent this franchise into a harder fall off than Iggy Azalea's career. Not gonna tell you the exact date of my long-awaited exit from that wound, but my birthday lines up not too terribly after the last championship the Angels won, and kinda perfectly to where me being born is really the only logical conclusion I can come up with at this point as to why the Angels have become such a depressing franchise since. By the way, when I told you to get ready for a whisper, that could have been the perfect opportunity for me to absolutely blast something your ancestors' eardrums would have heard, so you're welcome for doing the brave thing to not do that. Anyway, the Angels, a team that's missed the playoffs for 11 straight years now, made it only once in the last 16 years. They haven't won a playoff game in 16 years. It's been a disaster. They're currently owners of the worst contract in maybe sports history, paying a man who hates baseball, never plays baseball, $245 million to play baseball. Now, look, it's obviously the easiest thing in hindsight to trash the Rendon deal, rightfully so. And as incompetent as the Angels owner Artie Moreno may be, this is going to be the one time I give the Angels credit in this video, but you do have to at least give Moreno credit for investing into the team. Something you can't say for most owners. He spent money, a lot of it. That's not the issue. The issue is who he spent money on. Signing Rendon didn't seem like a dumb thing to do when it happened, and even though Rendon did say something about finding baseball boring or whatever when on the Nationals, for the most part, when he was on the Nationals, he did seem cooler and like more normal. It really does feel like he's almost morphed into a completely different person over the years with the Angels. I guess it's kind of like he went the Kanye West route. Like he was always, I guess, at least a little bit nuts, and then he just took it to another level. But despite this franchise losing for 10 plus years, which would make you assume they at least get good draft picks and prospects, no, they don't even have that. So the front office has been awful. In fact, it's so awful, they can't even get their AC right. Check this shit out. So Yusei Kikuchi, the Angels pitcher they gave a good amount of money before last year. That's what I'm saying. They give money out. Like they're not cheap. But anyway, he complained that the air conditioning had been broken in the weight room all season and was never fixed despite him asking. Another player, Kevin Pillar, also said something similar. Shout out Sam Blum, reporter for the team. He always gets these ridiculous things. He was the one who got Rendon on his baseball is a boring job, I don't even want to be here rant a couple of years ago at spring training. Now here he is asking Perry Manassian, the general manager, if there's anything to be addressed with the amenities because of these complaints. That the AC wasn't working, and they asked, and nothing was done. Well, Manassian said the air conditioning is great, very cold. Like, that AC, man, it's cold. It's doing what it should be doing. In fact, coldest in the league. Blum says, it didn't break? No. He was lying about that? I'm not saying he was lying. I don't know what he said. The air conditioning is fine. We take care of our players. There are multiple players now saying this publicly. Who else said that? Kevin Pillar went out and said that the other day. Said the air conditioning is broken. Said they're below on their amenities. So Manassian is like, he said the air conditioning didn't work? And Blum says he didn't say specifically air conditioning. He said many amenities were below standard. And I'm sure he's implying the AC, because especially Kikuchi specifically said the AC. And Manassian says, so what's your question? And Blum says, do you feel that's an area you need to address? And he says, the amenities? And Blum's like, yeah, the amenities. No, I think our amenities are fine. I think we have great people. I think the environment in the clubhouse this year was outstanding. I think Yusei would say the same thing. Oh, you think the amenities are fine, you say? Then tell me why within hours after this, the Angels posted a job opening for an HVAC technician. Reminds me of this scene in Norbit.
But boy, did I have your ass!
That's nice, Norbit. Really nice. Did you write that yourself? Pathetic.
That's why I took the liberty of inviting some of Dion's ex-wives down so maybe they could tell you for themselves. Ladies!
Hello, Antoine. I've been looking for you. Daddy!
What is this, an episode of The Office? Except Manassian isn't nearly as charming or likable as Michael Scott? Now, this is the shit you can laugh about, but when you see some of the frickin' weird shit that's going on behind the scenes, it actually makes a whole lot of sense why this franchise hasn't seen the playoffs in 11 years. So if you're not aware, there was an Angels pitcher, Tyler Skaggs, that died in July of 2019 at 27 years old because of a drug overdose. They found him dead in a Dallas hotel room where he and the team were staying while playing the Rangers. Just horrifying. And as a result of this, Skaggs' wife, so his widow now, and his parents sued 3 parties. Eric Kay, who was the team's communication director, the team itself, the Angels, and former vice president of communications Tim Mead. Now, Kay has already been convicted. He was convicted a few years ago for providing Skaggs with a pill laced with fentanyl and sentenced to 22 years in federal prison. And Eric Kay is our main character today. That rhymed. Anyway, Strange doesn't even begin to describe this dude, even though he wasn't alone and everything. It's a really weird situation. So Kay was an absolute degenerate. 5 MLB players testified that they received pills from Kay several times from 2017 through 2019. Again, he is now in prison, but because the Angels are also being sued for potentially being responsible, there's been an ongoing thing, and that led to a recent testimony in Orange County Superior Court with Mike Trout being there to testify. This is him, apparently, or at least supposed to be. I'm just going to assume at this point these court drawings are meant to look awful for attention. Anyway, according to Trout, he didn't have any suspicion there was any issue with Skaggs before he died. He said he never seemed addicted to anything. Skaggs' widow said the same thing. Kay's situation, little different though. Kay was so desperate for money, like when everything was going on over those years, obviously for drugs as we now know, but he was so desperate he was doing diabolical things for it. And the Angels for a while didn't seem to have much of an issue helping him out with those unholy things. Now, they didn't know, at least not at first. They just looked at the things Kay was doing for money as good old classic clubhouse bonding, fraternity hazing type shit. So stupid. But yeah, Kay was once paid $1,000 to take a 90-mile-an-hour fastball to the leg. And if that was the worst thing that happened, I would actually think this is a great situation. Yeah, hold on tight if you haven't heard this shit. Kay was also once paid a couple $100s to shave his eyebrows and jump into cold water with his clothes on. There was another one where he put on an Eagles helmet. Mike Trout is an Eagles fan, so I'm sure that had something to do with it. And had Cole Calhoun, a former player, drill him with a pass to the head. Again, this gets worse than you think. Whatever you're thinking at this point, if you don't already know, whatever you're thinking, it gets like a lot worse. They paid him once to eat a bug off the clubhouse floor. Man, what great clubhouse bonding. This is the new Moneyball, clubhouse bonding. This is what really, brings people together. I'm be shocked if every other team hasn't already implemented this stuff. How about this one? Trout himself, he was asked about this in the testimony. He confirmed that he did this. He once paid Kay to pop a pimple off his back and eat it. What? There's also speculation that Kay would get prostitutes for players in spring training. Skaggs' family's lawyer is putting that out there, and I guess that's not confirmed. But considering we're talking about a dude who ate bugs and pimples off people's backs, I don't doubt for a nanosecond he hired prostitutes. That actually sounds like the most normal thing this degenerate would do. Trout said he wasn't aware of that, but did say he may have heard of Kay getting Viagra for a player who wanted it, which doesn't seem to make sense, just because isn't Viagra a legal or pretty easy drug to get? Why is anyone asking this weirdo for that? Trout also acknowledged that some clubhouse attendants may have bought marijuana for players, which, okay, that makes more sense. I have to point out how weird this testimony was on the judge's part, too. For half the hearing, he was basically just fangirling out, asking Trout baseball questions that had nothing to do with Skaggs' death. He literally just started talking to Trout about his career. I'm not kidding. It started with him congratulating Trout for his 400th home run. It's okay, that was a little weird. Then he asks him if the 485-foot home run is the longest he's hit, which I think was his 400th. Trout's like, yeah, pretty much, I guess. Then the judge goes, well, at least we can agree on something. 485 feet is a bomb. But you would legitimately think this has to be fake with how ridiculous it got. He asked Trout about his college playing days. I guess I guess what he was trying to do was set the scene with how deeply rooted Trout's connection with Skaggs goes, because the two were drafted in the same year and lived together right away early on in the minor leagues, so it kind of ties into that. But like, most of what was said and asked had nothing to do with anything. In the first home game after Skaggs died, the Angels threw a combined no-hitter, which was pretty wild. And the judge started talking about that a little bit. He says, "Now, I don't want to get too metaphysical, but did you feel Tyler's energy and his spirit that night? How did you feel when you were running around the bases?" What are we doing? Like, what does this have to do with getting to the bottom of if the Angels should be held responsible or not for this guy overdosing? It's like in Norbit, yes, another Norbit mention. I can't ever waste a chance to tie in that cinematic masterpiece. The judge asking all these irrelevant questions, like, what's his explanation for that? It's like when Norbit catches Rasputia cheating on him with her dance instructor, and he's like,
I was just here giving her a little tap lesson.
But you're naked.
Oh, that's just so she could see the various muscle groups as I go through the various routines. You see that there? You can't see that with a turtleneck.
Again, none of the players on drugs, including Trout, suspected Kay was on anything or providing anything to anyone until someone else, another Angels clubhouse attendant, warned him that, like, hey, the money Kay is getting with all these disgusting things, he's probably not using that money for a good purpose. It'd be really ironic if this was one of the Angels attendants who was giving out marijuana to players. But anyway, after being suggested this, Trout was like, okay, yeah, he's probably on drugs, and that's when he became Dokes from Dexter. Trout testified that Kay at times was sweating and seemed quote-unquote wired, and it even prompted Trout to address it with him, being like, hey, you got 2 boys at home, 2 kids at home, you gotta figure this out. He, of course, never did, and it only got tremendously worse. Man, I really wonder why Shohei Ohtani left. Crazy. Everyone should blame the Dodgers some more for ruining baseball. Yeah, the team that 80 years ago signed Jackie Robinson and helped change not just baseball, but the country, the world. The team that's kept a guy on contract for the last 7 years and counting, despite not having played at all during that time, just so they can support him while his life's gone downhill. The team that gave the greatest athlete in the world a spotlight and winning team to play on, which in turn has grown the sport more than ever. Yeah, sorry, I'm going to take the side of that team and be happy Shohei chose them over this hellfest, over the fake Los Angeles team that hires people who allegedly bring prostitutes for its players and distribute fentanyl-laced drugs that lead to a 27-year-old dying during the season on their watch. And don't forget denying your own players' claims that your AC is broken just to then immediately have a job opening for a technician. You cannot make any of this shit up. This franchise is a complete joke, a much more disturbing joke than most of us realize, than I could have ever realized. And contrary to what a lot of people may be thinking, I'm happy the real LA team is in the World Series. The Angels ironically went 6-0 against the Dodgers this year. They can have that. As we just saw how the Brewers going 6-0 against the Dodgers during the regular season ended up, yeah, that means nothing. But it's also the biggest thing they have to be proud of for the last 16 years. So, and their new manager, Kurt Suzuki, who they just hired, only for a 1-year deal, by the way. Good luck. Best of luck. That's all I pretty much have to say for now. All right. Love you. Bye.